I never thought the day would come when my own son would look at me like I was nothing. I never imagined the woman he married would be the one to push him to throw me out like yesterday's trash. But they had no idea what life still had waiting for me. My name is Dorothy. I'm 59 years old, and for most of my life I believed family was everything. I gave everything to my little family. Every meal I cooked, every scraped knee I kissed, every penny I saved, it was all for my husband and our boy Michael. When my husband died of a sudden heart attack last year, my world shattered into 1,000 pieces. The house in Round Rock felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories that hurt to touch. I sold it because I couldn't bear the emptiness anymore. Michael and his wife Jessica said I could come stay with them for a while. Michael said it kindly. Jessica just rolled her eyes and went back to scrolling on her phone. I tried so hard to be the perfect guest. I took the tiny back bedroom, the one with the broken blinds and the loud air conditioner. I cooked their dinners, cleaned their house, folded their laundry, anything to earn my place. But Jessica had a way of making me feel like I was in the way just by existing. She'd ignore my good mornings. She'd change the channel when I finally sat down to watch something. One afternoon I heard her on the phone with a friend, laughing softly. She's like a ghost that won't leave. I stood frozen in the hallway holding a basket of their clean clothes. My heart cracked right there, but I pretended I hadn't heard. Michael never defended me. When I looked at him with pleading eyes, he'd just shrug and say, "She's tired, Mom. Work is hard for her." I swallowed every hurt like a good mother should. Then came the night that broke me completely. I had made meatloaf, Michael's favorite since he was 5, the one with the sweet ketchup glaze on top. Jessica was on her phone as usual. Michael drank his beer and stared at the television. The room was heavy with silence. Then Jessica put her phone down and smiled that thin, fake smile. "We need to talk about this living situation," she said. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" I asked, already knowing. She sighed like I was the biggest burden in the world. "How much longer is this going to go on? You're not paying rent, you're not working, we have our own bills, we didn't sign up to support an extra person." The words hit harder than any slap. I looked at my son, the little boy I raised alone after his daddy walked out when he was 5. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe Mom should find her own place," he mumbled. "It might be better for everyone." I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I stood up, walked to my tiny room and packed my 2 old suitcases. That was all I had left of a whole life. The tears didn't come until I was standing outside their building in the cold, the wind whipping my thin coat. Michael didn't even walk me out. Jessica didn't pretend to care. I sat on the sidewalk for 2 hours, phone dead, nowhere to go. I remember thinking, so this is what it feels like to be forgotten by your own child. That night I checked into a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with flickering neon signs and stains on the carpet you don't want to think about. I lay on the lumpy bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering how the little boy who used to beg me to check for monsters under his bed could turn into this stranger who threw me away. The next morning I texted Michael, "I understand. I love you no matter what." No answer. For weeks I sent little messages, birthday wishes for his old teddy bear's birthday, updates about the weather, anything to remind him I still existed. Nothing came back. 3 months crawled by, each day heavier than the last. My savings were disappearing fast. I applied everywhere, grocery stores, cafes, cleaning services, but no one wanted a 59-year-old woman who hadn't worked outside the home in decades. My back hurt too much to clean houses anyway. Loneliness wrapped around me like a wet blanket I couldn't shake off. One evening, sitting on the motel floor surrounded by the only box I'd brought from the old house, I opened it looking for something happy to hold on to. Old photographs, birthday cards, and at the very bottom a small leather book I hadn't seen in years, my mother's diary. I don't even remember packing it. Something made me open it that night. The lamp flickered as I turned the fragile pages. At first it was ordinary things, weather reports, church socials, complaints about the price of milk. Then I found the entry that stopped my heart. June 12th, he came again today, said he wished he could leave his wife, wished he could make me his, but he has a family and a company to protect. Dorothy will never know the truth. She must never know. I hope one day she forgives me for loving her even though she was born from a mistake. I read it 4 times. My hands shook so hard the book almost fell. Page after page told the story, secret meetings in out-of-town hotels, envelopes of cash she hated taking but needed initials instead of a name, RDM. Then a later entry written in February, the ink smudged like she'd been crying. He promised if anything ever happened to him, Dorothy would get something. Not everything, he can't risk that, but enough. A trust, Mr. Patterson knows, the lawyer. It has to stay hidden until the right time. I couldn't breathe. I knew that name. Richard Daniel Morrison, the man who built Morrison Oil, one of the biggest companies in Texas. I'd seen his face on the news my whole life, always with his perfect society wife and legitimate children. I sat there on that dirty motel carpet until the sun came up, reading and rereading until the words burned into my brain. All my life I'd been told my father left before I was born. All my life I'd been the secret. And now it turned out the secret came with money, money that was meant for me all along. For the first time in months, a tiny smile pulled at my lips. They thought they had thrown me away for good. They had no idea what was coming. The next 2 weeks felt like I was living inside someone else's skin. I barely slept. I kept the diary on the little table beside the motel bed and read it every night until the words blurred. My mother had loved a man who could never love her in daylight, and she had carried that shame alone so I wouldn't have to. All those years she worked double shifts at the diner, came home with swollen feet, still found energy to braid my hair and listen to my school stories. She had done it with a broken heart and a secret that could have destroyed both of us. Now that secret was mine, and it weighed more than sadness ever had. I found Robert Patterson's office address on the motel's ancient computer. My hands shook too hard to call, so I wrote a letter instead, handwriting neat the way Mama taught me. I told him my name, my mother's name. The initials RDM and the promise she had written about. I mailed it from the lobby and then waited like a prisoner waiting for a verdict. Every day I walked to the front desk asking if anyone had called for Dorothy Hartwell. The clerk started recognizing me, started giving me that pity smile I was getting used to. Then one afternoon the phone in my room actually rang. The voice on the other end sounded old and careful. "Miss Hartwell, this is Robert Patterson. I think you and I need to talk in person." I took the first Greyhound to Dallas the next morning. I wore my only decent dress, the navy one I had saved for funerals, and I carried the diary in my purse like it was the most precious thing I owned. The law office smelled like lemon polish and old paper. Mr. Patterson was smaller than I expected, thin white hair, thick glasses, hands that trembled when he shook mine. He didn't waste time. He locked the door, pulled the shades, and handed me a yellowed envelope addressed in fountain pen, to my daughter Dorothy May. I opened it with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. The letter was dated 23 years ago, the year Richard Daniel Morrison died in that private plane crash everyone still talked about. He wrote that he had always watched me from a distance, that he had paid for my braces, my school trips, the down payment on Mama's little house, always through Mr. Patterson so no one would know. He was sorry for every birthday he missed, every Christmas he couldn't sit at our table. And because he knew he could never fix the past, he had set aside money that would come to me the day I ever asked for it. "You are my blood," he wrote, "and blood deserves its share." Mr. Patterson slid a thick folder across the desk. Bank statements, stock certificates, deeds to mineral rights, everything hidden inside trusts so his legitimate family would never find it. The final number at the bottom of the page made the room tilt. $1,247,000, give or take whatever the investments had earned since his death. I stared until the numbers stopped looking real. "This is mine," I whispered. My voice cracked like a teenager's. Mr. Patterson nodded. "It always was. Your father was a coward in life, Mrs. Hartwell, but he tried to be a man in his will." I cried then, ugly and loud, the kind of crying I hadn't allowed myself since the night Michael closed the door on me. Mr. Patterson pushed a box of tissues across the desk and waited. When I finally dried my eyes, I asked the only question that mattered. "Can anyone take this away from me now?" He smiled for the first time. "Not a soul on earth, it's yours, free and clear." I took the late bus back to Austin that night. The city lights blurred past the window, but for the first time in months I wasn't watching them through tears. I was making plans. The money would hit my new account in 10 business days. I had 10 days to decide who I wanted to become when I stopped being poor and invisible. I checked out of the motel the same week the transfer cleared. I rented a furnished apartment downtown, the kind with big windows and a doorman who called me ma'am. I bought new clothes, nothing flashy, just simple things that fit well and didn't come from the clearance rack. I got my hair cut and colored for the first time in 15 years. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized, someone who walked like she had somewhere important to be. I spent evenings on my new laptop watching videos about real estate, trusts, limited liability companies. I opened accounts under the name D. Miley DM Properties, LLC, Dorothy May hidden inside initials no one would ever connect to the sad old lady they had thrown out. I hired Mr. Patterson to handle the paperwork so my real name never appeared anywhere public. Then I started looking at properties. I wasn't sure what I was searching for until the listing appeared. A 20-unit apartment building in East Austin, built in the 80s, a little tired but solid. The address made my breath catch. It was the exact building where Michael and Jessica lived. The owner had fallen behind on taxes and needed to sell fast. Sealed bid auction in 14 days. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the photos until the sun came up. The brick exterior, the cracked parking lot, the ugly green doors, every detail felt like it was daring me. I called Mr. Patterson at 7 in the morning. "I want it," I said. My voice didn't shake even a little. "Whatever it takes." We structured the bid through DM Properties. I offered 20% above asking, cash, no inspection, quick close. 2 weeks later the county accepted. Just like that, I owned the roof over my son's head. I signed the final papers in a conference room with windows that looked out over the Colorado River. When the real estate agent handed me the keys, I felt something shift inside my chest, something cold and final and powerful. That night I stood in my new apartment, holding the master key ring, and I whispered to the quiet room, "They wanted me gone. Now I decide how long they stay." I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just poured myself a small glass of the good bourbon I had bought to celebrate and drank it slowly, tasting every drop of the future I was about to build, one brick at a time. The first rent increase notices went out 31 days after closing. I had the property manager draft them on thick cream paper with the new DM Properties letterhead. Every tenant got the same polite letter explaining market adjustments and necessary improvements, except one. Michael and Jessica's new monthly rent was exactly 3 times what they had been paying. Not 2, 3. I added a line about accrued late fees and a new policy requiring certified funds only. I sat at my desk and read their letter 6 times before I sealed it. My hand didn't shake once. 2 days later my phone lit up with Michael's name for the first time since the night he threw me out. I let it ring until voicemail caught it. His message was exactly what I expected, confused, then angry, then pleading. "Mom, something really weird is going on. Our rent just tripled overnight. Jessica is freaking out. I don't know what to do. Can we please talk?" I saved the message and played it again just to hear the crack in his voice when he said please. Then I deleted it. Jessica tried next. Her texts came in a frantic string. "Did you hear about our rent? This has to be a mistake. Someone is targeting us. Mom, please call me." I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering, remembering how she had stood behind Michael that night in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes cold, saying nothing while he told me to leave. I turned the phone face down and went to bed. I started driving by the building at different times of day. I never parked in the same spot twice. Sometimes I sat across the street with a coffee and watched their window. The curtains stayed closed more often now. Lights came on later and went off earlier, like they were trying to save on electricity. One evening I saw Jessica carrying grocery bags up the stairs alone. Michael's truck wasn't in its usual space. She looked thin, tired. When she reached the landing she stopped, put the bags down and rested her forehead against the wall for a long moment. Something twisted inside me, but I didn't look away. The other tenants loved the changes. I poured money into the property the way a gardener waters a plant that's been dying of thirst. New exterior paint the color of warm sand, motion sensor lights in every hallway, landscaping that actually had flowers, fixed the laundry room dryers that had been broken for 2 years. I replaced the busted mailboxes and put little solar lights along the walkway. Tenants started leaving thank you notes at the management office. Someone baked cookies. Someone else left a potted plant. Michael left a 3-page handwritten letter full of capital letters and underlined words that said things like unlawful and harassment, and I know MYRIGHTS. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and filed it under M. I kept my distance in public. I changed my hair again, darker this time, and started wearing sunglasses even when it wasn't bright. One morning I had a tenant meeting in the community room to explain the upcoming inspections. I walked through the parking lot in a navy blazer and heels, clipboard in hand, pretending to be the regional manager. Michael and Jessica were coming out of their apartment at the exact same moment. Jessica glanced at me and looked away. Michael stared right through me. He didn't recognize the woman who used to iron his work shirts and pack his lunches. I kept walking, heart hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it. That night I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and watched their window from 3 miles away, the way you watch storm clouds gather on the horizon. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad either. I was calm the way deep water is calm right before it swallows everything on the surface. Michael started working overtime. I knew because the maintenance man told me his truck was in the lot at 6:30 most mornings now. Jessica sold her car. I saw the for sale sign one day and the empty space the next. I found her walking home from the bus stop in the rain once, plastic grocery bags cutting into her wrists. She didn't see me parked half a block away. She looked like someone carrying more than just groceries. The angry voicemails kept coming. Michael's voice got thinner each time, like a wire about to snap. "Mom, I know you're out there somewhere. If you need money or something, just tell me. This is getting insane." I saved everyone. I wasn't ready to answer yet. I needed him to keep feeling the exact weight of the silence he had given me. Jessica tried a different tactic. One night she left a voicemail that wasn't angry at all. Her voice was small and cracked at the edges. "Mom, I miss you. Michael is so angry all the time and I don't know how to fix it. I think about that night every single day. I should have said something. I was scared. I'm still scared. I wish I could take it back." She started crying then, the kind of crying where you can hear someone trying to hold the phone steady while their whole world falls apart. I listened to it 7 times, then I saved it and went to bed. Some nights I took my mother's diary out and read the parts where she wrote about loving a man who could never love her back in public. I understood her better now. Love can make you quiet when you should scream. Love can make you cruel when you think you're being kind. Michael thought he was protecting his little family by pushing me out. Jessica thought she was keeping peace by staying silent. They were both wrong, and now the bill had come due. I wasn't cruel for no reason. Every extra dollar they paid went straight back into the building. New roofs, new appliances in the common areas, a playground for the kids on the first floor. Their suffering was making life better for 20 other families. That was the part I held onto when the old guilt tried to creep in. This wasn't vengeance, it was balance. Still, there were moments that hurt worse than anything they had done to me. One Saturday I saw Michael at the grocery store. I stayed 3 aisles away watching through the shelves. His cart had instant noodles, generic cereal, the cheapest eggs. He stopped in front of the good coffee, the kind he used to drink every morning, looked at the price and put it back. His shoulders folded forward like someone had punched him in the chest. I stood there holding a bunch of bananas and felt my eyes burn. That was my little boy who once believed I could fix anything with a hug and a popsicle. Now he couldn't even afford the coffee he liked. I left before he saw me. I drove home with the windows down even though it was cold, letting the wind slap my face until the tears dried. When I got to my apartment, I poured a glass of wine and sat in the dark. I told myself this was necessary. I told myself pain was the only language he had left to learn in. But the truth was uglier. Part of me was satisfied, and that satisfaction tasted like ash. I wasn't finished, not even close. The first time Jessica showed up at my new building, I almost didn't let her in. The intercom buzzed at 7:12 on a Thursday evening. The little screen showed a woman in an oversized hoodie, hair damp from drizzle, clutching a grocery bag like a life raft. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hi, this is Jessica Hartwell. I was wondering if my mother-in-law lives here." My finger hovered over the button for a long time, then I pressed it and watched her disappear into the lobby. When I opened the apartment door, she looked like someone had erased half of her. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, clothes hanging loose where they used to fit. We stared at each other for what felt like minutes. Finally she breathed out, "Hi, Mom," like the word hurt coming out. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, dripping on my hardwood, and sat on the very edge of the couch as if she expected me to tell her to leave any second. I made tea without asking. Chamomile, 2 sugars, the way she used to drink it when she still pretended to like me. I set the cup in front of her and sat across the room. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope. She wrapped both hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing left in the world. "I don't know where to start," she said at last. Her voice cracked on every word. I said nothing. She tried again. He is the person I married anymore. He's angry from the minute he wakes up. He blames the landlord, blames me, blames the dog next door for breathing too loud. He thinks someone is doing this to us on purpose." She looked up, eyes pleading. I told him that was crazy. But I sipped my tea, still said nothing. She kept going, words tumbling faster now. "I keep thinking about that night when we asked you to leave. I stood there like a coward and let him say those things. He told me you never go unless we forced you. He said it would be better for everyone. I was so tired of fighting him, Mom. I just wanted peace. I hated myself the second the door closed behind you." Her tears started then, slow at first, then hard enough that her shoulders shook. I watched them fall into her tea and felt something inside me twist, but I didn't move to comfort her. Not yet. I miss you, she whispered. I miss Sunday dinners and the way you folded the towels exactly right. I miss knowing there was one person in the world who loved me even when I was awful. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I don't know how to fix what we broke. I let the silence sit a little longer, then I spoke for the first time. You didn't just let him, Jessica, you stood with him. I looked at you that night and begged with my eyes for one word, one single word, and you gave me nothing. My voice was calm, almost gentle, but it cut clean. She flinched like I'd slapped her. She opened her mouth, closed it again, nodded. There was nothing left to defend. We sat another 40 minutes without speaking much. She didn't ask for money, she didn't mention the rent, she just needed to be in the same room as someone who once loved her. When she finally stood to leave, she reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she said, for everything. I let her hold it longer than I meant to. Then she walked out, and the second the door clicked I sank into the chair and held her still warm teacup against my chest like it might stop the ache. 3 days later, Michael figured out DM Properties was registered to a management company that also handled my new building. He put two and two together the way only an obsessed man can. The threatening letter came the next afternoon, slipped under my door in a plain envelope. The handwriting was his, angry slashes across the page. I know what you're doing. You think you're clever, but you don't scare me. When I find proof, you'll be sorry. No signature, but the paper still smelled faintly of the cheap cologne he wore. I read it twice, folded it, and called Mr. Patterson. By the next morning we had quiet cameras in every hallway, the stairwells, the parking lot, legal, discreet, and recording 24 hours a day. I wasn't afraid of Michael. I was protecting the other 19 families who paid their rent on time and deserved to feel safe. The building report started painting a darker picture. Neighbors heard shouting that went on for hours. One night glass broke, loud enough that someone called the management office. The maintenance man knocked. No one answered, but he could hear Michael packing and muttering and Jessica crying behind the door. The next day her car was gone, sold for whatever they could get. She started taking the bus. Some nights their electricity shut off at 8 sharp because they were behind on that bill too. Michael's pride wouldn't let him move. I knew him. Moving would mean admitting defeat, and he would rather live in a cardboard box than let some invisible landlord win. So he doubled down. He stormed into the management office twice a week demanding the owner's name. He sent fake emails pretending to be lawyers, journalists, even a concerned cousin. My manager forwarded everything to me with a single line: tenant in 2B is becoming a problem. Jessica came back one more time, soaked from a sudden rain, clutching a single grocery bag like it was all she could carry. I let her in again. This time she didn't sit. She stood dripping in the entryway and spoke without looking at me. He followed me to work yesterday, she said quietly. Sat outside in his truck for my whole shift. When I came out he asked if I was talking to you. He went through my phone while I was in the shower. He thinks I'm helping you destroy him. She finally met my eyes. I lied and said I hadn't seen you in months. I'm scared, Mom, not of the rent anymore. I'm scared of him. I felt the floor tilt under me. I had wanted them to feel consequences, not terror, but I kept my face still. You still have choices, Jessica. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I know, I just don't know how to leave when I have nothing. I didn't offer to fix it, not yet. She had to walk through the fire she helped start, but I didn't close the door in her face either. I handed her a towel and made more tea. She drank half the cup standing up, then set it down and left without another word. That night I sat in the dark with the city lights spread out below me and realized the game had changed. It wasn't about rent anymore. It was about how far a man would fall before he admitted he was wrong, and whether the woman trapped beside him would find the courage to save herself. I wasn't sure which one of them would break first, but I knew the breaking was close. The final crack came on a Tuesday night in early November. The building manager called me at 11:07. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Mrs. May, you need to see this yourself. Unit 2B police are on their way, but I thought you should know first. I threw on jeans and a coat and drove the 6 minutes to the complex faster than I should have. Red and blue lights were already painting the brick walls when I pulled in. 2 patrol cars, an ambulance idling, neighbors in robes and slippers standing on balconies. Jessica was sitting on the bottom step barefoot, wrapped in a blanket one of the officers had given her. Her lip was split and swelling. One eye was already turning purple. When she saw me, she stood up so fast the blanket slipped off her shoulders. Mom, she croaked, and then she was in my arms, shaking like a child who'd been lost for years. I held her without thinking. The smell of blood and rain and fear filled my nose, and for the first time in months I felt the old instinct rise up, the one that used to make me drop everything when Michael fell off his bike or had a fever. The officer approached, young, polite, careful. "Ma'am, are you family?" I started to say no, then looked at Jessica clinging to me and heard myself answer, "Yes, I'm her mother-in-law." He nodded and stepped back. Jessica's voice was hoarse against my coat. "He lost it completely, said he finally found proof it was you, tore the apartment apart looking for something to use. When I tried to calm him down, he threw me against the wall." The neighbors heard. Someone called 911 before I could stop them. Michael was already in the back of a patrol car, hands cuffed, forehead pressed to the window. When he saw me standing with Jessica, his eyes went wide, then narrow, then wild. He started screaming through the glass, words I couldn't hear but could read on his lips. "You did this. You did this to us." I met his stare without blinking until the officer closed the door and the sound died. They took Jessica to the hospital to document injuries. I drove her myself because she refused the ambulance. In the fluorescent exam room, she sat on the edge of the bed, small and shivering, while a nurse took photos of the bruises blooming across her ribs, her arms, the perfect outline of fingers around her throat. Every click of the camera felt like a hammer on my heart. When the nurse left us alone, Jessica finally spoke. "I can't go back there. I have nowhere, Mom, nowhere." I looked at her for a long time. Then I said the first kind thing I had said to either of them in almost a year. "You're coming home with me tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." She cried then, hard, ugly sobs that shook the paper gown they'd given her. I held her the way I used to hold Michael when nightmares woke him at 3 a.m, rocking, whispering it's over, until the storm inside her quieted. We didn't speak on the drive to my apartment. I gave her warm pajamas, made up the guest room, left a new toothbrush on the counter. She fell asleep the second her head touched the pillow. I stood in the doorway watching her breathe and felt the weight of everything I had built these past months shift and settle into something new. Revenge had tasted clean and sharp for a long time. Now it tasted like hospital antiseptic and someone else's blood. The next morning Jessica woke before me. I found her in the kitchen making coffee with careful, quiet movements like she was afraid to take up space. When I walked in she turned, eyes red but steady. "I filed a protective order at the hospital," she said. "They helped me and I called a divorce attorney. I'm done pretending he'll change." She tried to smile and failed. "Thank you for letting me stay. I know I don't deserve it." I poured coffee for both of us and sat across the table. "You're staying as long as you need. That room is yours. But there are things you need to know." I told her everything. The diary, Morrison Oil, the trust, DM properties, the rent increases, the cameras, the letters. I watched her face move through shock, understanding, horror, and finally something close to awe. When I finished, she stared into her cup for a long time. "You could have ruined us completely," she whispered. "You didn't." I thought about it, I admitted. Some nights I wanted to, but this stopped being about money a long time ago. She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything I let happen, for every day I stood silent." I squeezed her fingers once and let go. "Sorry is a start, living different is the rest." Michael spent 2 nights in jail. The judge granted Jessica's protective order and set bail he couldn't pay. He lost his job the following week, too many missed shifts, too many angry outbursts. The apartment sat empty and dark. I had the locks changed the same day he was arrested. I didn't evict him formally, there was no need. He had nowhere to come back to. Jessica moved into my guest room permanently. She found a job at a law firm downtown, answering phones, filing papers, small steady work that let her breathe again. She started therapy. She gained weight. She laughed sometimes, careful little laughs at first, then real ones that filled the apartment with a sound I had forgotten I missed. Some evenings we sat on the balcony drinking tea and watching the city settle into night. One night she asked, "Are you ever going to tell him it was you?" I thought about Michael sleeping on a cousin's couch, pride shattered, future uncertain. I thought about the boy who used to fall asleep on my chest after bedtime stories. "Not yet," I said. "Some truths have to wait until the person is ready to hear them. He isn't there." Jessica nodded. She understood waiting now. Winter came early that year. I kept the building rent steady for every tenant except the empty Unit 2B. I painted it fresh, put in new carpet, and rented it to a young couple with a baby on the way for less than market rate. Life moved forward the way it always does, slow and stubborn and full of second chances no one deserves, but some people get anyway. I still had the master key ring. I still had the power to raise every rent with a single email, but I hung the keys on a hook by the door and left them there. Some weapons you only need to show once. Spring arrived soft and slow, the way Austin does when the bluebonnets push up through cracked sidewalks and the air smells like possibility again. Jessica had been living with me for 5 months. The bruises were long gone, replaced by colour in her cheeks and a quiet confidence that grew a little every day. She paid rent now, small but steady, and she insisted on buying groceries every week. We cooked together most nights, simple things, meatloaf sometimes, because she said she missed the way I made it. We never talked about that last dinner in the old apartment. Some memories are better left buried under new ones. Michael never came looking for either of us. Word reached me through old neighbors that he was staying with a cousin in San Marcos, working construction, drinking too much, telling anyone who would listen that his mother had ruined his life. I let the story float. Truth has its own schedule. One Saturday in April, the building threw a spring barbecue in the courtyard I had paid to resurface. Kids ran between the new picnic tables while parents grilled and music played from somebody's phone. I stood on the edge watching families I had never met laugh and pass potato salad, and I felt something loosen inside my chest that had been knotted for years. Jessica found me there, handed me a plate with a perfect hamburger and bumped my shoulder. "You did this," she said quietly. All of this? I looked around at the flowers I had planted, the fresh paint, the playground where toddlers squealed on swings that didn't squeak anymore. I shrugged, but I was smiling. That night Jessica asked if we could drive to the old motel where I had spent those first broken months. I hadn't been back since the day I checked out. We parked under the buzzing neon sign and sat in the car with the windows down. The ice machine still rattled like it had every night I cried myself to sleep. Jessica reached over and took my hand. "You survived this place," she said. "You turned surviving into something beautiful." I looked at the cracked door of room 112 and felt nothing but distance, like I was reading about someone else's life. In May, Jessica moved into her own apartment 2 floors below mine in the same building. She wanted her own space, but close enough that we could still have coffee on Sunday mornings. I helped her carry boxes, hung curtains, stocked her fridge. When the last box was empty, she hugged me so hard my ribs creaked. "I love you, Mom," she whispered into my hair, and for the first time I said it back without hesitation. "I love you too, baby." I kept DM properties. I bought 2 more buildings, smaller ones, fixed them the same way, raised rents only when the market demanded, and never more than people could bear. I hired Jessica part-time to manage tenant relations because she was good with people, because she understood what it felt like to be afraid of the mailbox. We made rules together. No one gets crushed, everyone gets a chance to fix late rent. Every kid in our buildings gets a Christmas gift whether their parents can pay or not. The money kept growing, but it stopped feeling like power and started feeling like responsibility. One afternoon in June I got a letter forwarded from the old management company. Plain envelope, shaky handwriting I hadn't seen in almost a year. I knew before I opened it. "Mom, I don't know if you'll even read this. I don't deserve for you to. I've been sober 63 days, I go to meetings. I think about that night every single day, the way you looked when you packed those suitcases. I think about Jessica's face the night I put my hands on her. I hate the man I became. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I finally see what I did. I'm sorry isn't big enough, but it's all I have right now. Michael." I read it on the balcony while the sun set orange over the city. Jessica came up with 2 glasses of sweet tea and sat beside me. I handed her the letter without a word. She read it slowly, folded it and gave it back. "What will you do?" she asked. "Nothing today," I said. "Maybe nothing ever. Some doors stay closed until the person on the other side has earned the right to knock again." She nodded. We drank our tea and watched the first stars come out. Years have passed since then. Jessica married a quiet man who treats her like she hung the moon. They gave me a granddaughter with Jessica's eyes and my mother's smile. I taught her to roll pie crust the way my mama taught me. Michael writes sometimes, short letters, updates about his job, his sobriety coin count, never asking for anything. I answer when I feel like it. Some wounds close clean, some leave thick scars. Ours is somewhere in between. I still have my mother's diary in the same leather cover, pages soft now from handling. Sometimes I open it to the entry where she wrote that she hoped one day I would understand how much she loved me even though I was born from a mistake. I understand now. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet choices, years of silence, money hidden in trusts, rent raised just high enough to teach a lesson but not high enough to destroy. Sometimes love is letting someone sit in the dark they made until they're ready to find their own way out. I'm 70 now, healthier than I've been in decades, richer than I ever dreamed, surrounded by people who chose me when they didn't have to. I walk through my buildings and kids call me Miss Dorothy, tenants wave, flowers bloom in pots I paid for with money that was always meant to be mine. I never told the world my story. I didn't need to. I lived it. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been thrown away, forgotten, told you don't matter, remember what I learned in that broken down motel room with the rattling ice machine. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's becoming so strong, so kind, so undeniably whole that the people who hurt you have to watch you thrive from the outside of a life they can never touch again. This is my story. This is how I took back everything they tried to take from me, and how I learned that family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the ones who choose to stay when they finally see who you really are. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that no one gets to decide your worth but you, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to rise. I'm Dorothy, and I'll be here every week with more real stories of people who refuse to stay broken. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.